got the wife, or let's start the other way. You got the university, you got the career, you found a wife, you bought the house, you had kids, you did everything you're supposed to do that society tells us you're supposed to do. Why aren't I happy? Well, because nobody told you how to be happy with yourself first. That's far more important. And it's going to make your relationship and your career and your relationship with your children fulfilling. And when you're fulfilled as a man and you show up and you're present and you're happy with yourself and connected with yourself, everyone around you is happier too, because men have far more power and the ability to connect with their emotions than we've been told. In fact, there's research, and I need to actually find the studies. They're starting to find that men are actually more sensitive than women.
I believe that. I've always thought that. I've always thought that, actually.
Exactly. So look at the last 120 years. So let's go back to the 1900s. What happened? 2 world wars happened. Mm-hmm. 2 world wars. Men went off to war. They had to put on this suit of armor, even emotionally, just to literally survive as human beings. So we don't have the privilege of talking to anybody from the 1800s. Perhaps men were more in tune with their emotions. Perhaps it's possible. We don't actually know. You go through these 2 generations or 3 generations of men having to completely change their role in society and the family. Yeah, things got messed up. Now we're in 2021 and we're less reliant on, we don't have that kind of conflict to those extremes. Life is completely different. And we have the ability now to shift it back. We can give some power to men. Well, they can claim it. It's right there. They all have it. They all have the ability to tap into it. It's just, do they want to lean into it? Because it's scary. I'm not gonna candy coat that the role that a man has in his late 30s or early 40s or in their 20s and want to tap into their emotions when you haven't been shown how, since you just haven't been shown. There's some unknowns there.
Or maybe they think it's bad because of what's been instilled in them. Mm. What do you think, Kawa?
I think it's interesting about repressing emotions because also in our culture, we don't talk about this kind of topics. And all the men around me that have been growing up with my brother or my father, emotionally, they weren't really expressing their emotions. And that really affected all my family's members. Okay. And I want to ask a question. How can women provide a safe space for a man to express their emotions, show their vulnerabilities? Because I think it's hard for men to show the side of them. I don't think it's an easy process for them.
No, and oh man, I love this stuff. It's important to understand that we've talked about, age 12 to 25. We just use that as a reference point, that we didn't show boys and men how to transition from relating to their mom emotionally to their partner. So, I'm very well aware women want their partners to be more emotionally available, show their emotions. We don't want them to project. We don't want them to view their partner as their mother and how they relate their emotions to their mother. It's different. It's a different skill set. It's a different sharing. Your partner is not there to help you regulate emotionally like your mother was before age 12. So how do we get men to do that? There's a few factors at play. Number one is understanding masculine and feminine polarity and what that even means, what the masculine needs and craves, what the feminine needs and craves. And as I already brought up, we both have those energies and traits in us, male or female. It doesn't matter. It's not gender specific. But if you zoom out and in a relationship, you view the relationship as a whole, needing masculine and feminine energies and traits, which it does. And if we just imagine a circle and down the middle, masculine energy, feminine energy, 50-50. We're just using this for illustrative purposes. You would think that the man would fulfill the masculine and the woman would fulfill the feminine. But because we don't teach that, because men and women are very in tune with it. I'm going to get to this. I'm going to like put women on a pedestal a little bit in a minute. But for now, the question was, how do we encourage men to do that? I'm going to zoom out and imagine this circle, masculine and feminine energies. Women want men to fulfill this masculine role. We both want it. I'm generalizing, but it usually works for most people, which means women show up with their feminine energy, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And here's where you get to go as a gender. You're far ahead of us spiritually and healing this stuff. Like you're way ahead of us. If the man is supposed to fulfill 50% of the masculine or that masculine role in the relationship, but he can't because he doesn't know how to regulate his emotions, because he's not been modeled this in the relationship, women will be like, fine, I'm going to do it subconsciously. And all of a sudden you're doing your role plus this part of the pie, his masculine part. And he might now be doing 30% of the heavy lifting emotionally in the relationship, and nobody wants that. He doesn't want that. You don't want that, but we don't know what to do as men. So what can women do? First thing is to acknowledge that I'm occupying some of the space. And then you're going to say, yeah, but he's not doing it, so I have to. And I'm going to say, yeah, I understand. But if you're occupying that space, how is he supposed to step into it? So can you, as a woman, learn to step back and open up that space in the relationship so he can step into it? Of course, he has to be willing to. But if you want him to be masculine, and part of masculine is managing your own emotions. Like that's a big part. We think like machoism, maybe we might think of boys don't cry. That's not masculine. That's garbage. That's like societal marketing. Like it's a bit of a mess. But you want your man to be masculine, you need to allow him to be. So if you as a woman, or maybe this is a very broad example, making decisions for the family, where you're going to go for dinner, why isn't he making those decisions? Is it because you jump on it, because you've done that your whole relationship? Is it because when you were dating, he would show up and ask, where would you like to go for dinner? I'm not saying this is wrong. I'm just trying to show that when you occupy that space, and this is nobody's fault, he doesn't have the opportunity to do that. Is that line of thinking?
Yes.
You string it together.
So you have to lean back, right? And you have to create space for them to be a man, essentially.
Yeah. And this is where the divine feminine and masculine come into play. And I never used to understand this. I actually used to hate that terminology. But the reason was I didn't understand it. So the divine feminine, or the feminine, you can empower the man on a level you can't even comprehend. You have the ability to raise him up to a level where you both, it's like a cyclical thing, and you're both growing and you're both raising, and the relationship is better and better and better. And you're like, what is going on? Like, why is this so beautiful all of a sudden? And you as women, and this is a generalization, there's layers to this, but you have to learn to soften. So especially as single moms, which I have a ton of respect for, because it's hard, man. It's hard. You have to fulfill a masculine role in your household. How do you, when you're dating or starting a new relationship, soften a little bit? Like, how do you even do that? How do you learn to just like let your nervous system calm down and go into more your natural state? If you want to be more feminine, which most women I've met do want to be in their feminine. They don't necessarily enjoy being in their masculine. And I think we've touched on why that dynamic happens. you have to allow the man to do that. And I'm not saying that they can. I'm not saying they can. I'm saying, because the original question is, how do women help? That's the best way I've seen. Because if you have a partner and you're like, you need to be more masculine and I'm going to soften, you know what he hears? He hears mom telling him what to do. And that's not going to work either.
So how to communicate that?
Energetically. So communication is about words. It's more about energy. It's more about how you show up. It's more about connecting with yourself. And if you can communicate with yourself and understand your own energy, you now present yourself completely different. And we've done such a good job in society of getting super smart. Look at the computers we carry in our hand that, like, they haven't been around that long and they're pretty amazing. So we're really good at thinking. We're really good at thinking words are important, and they are very important. But everybody knows, listening to this, you can say something two different ways and they mean two different things energetically. Same words, different energy, means something different. So if you can't connect with the energy first, the words they're a good stepping stone. They're a good, like, I am trying. But if you don't believe it in your heart, what you're saying, if you're not connected to your heart as a man or a woman, it's kind of like just talking to a computer. And that's not what we're here for. We're here to connect with our partners and other humans.
Beautiful. That's absolutely true. So when you say you have to convey this energetically, can you break that down for people who may not quite understand how to do that? Hi, Tendai.
Yes. Our nervous systems are pretty magical. So I'm going to equate our nervous systems and our body to the same thing for a moment, just to simplify it. Our bodies and nervous systems store all of our experiences, all of our memory, what we're going to call as memories. We would like, oh, that's in my brain. I thought of this thing and it was a memory. That's true, but much of it is stored in our nervous system too, using our brain. So trauma is a real thing. Everybody has it. And if you're listening to this like, I don't have any trauma, that's not true. You do. You just do. And that's okay. It's part of the human experience. But the energy that is stored or that shows up in our nervous system in a conversation, we'll just use a conversation, is we are generally in fight, flight, or freeze, our nervous system activated 70% of our lives. And that's a crazy thing. If you think I'm awake for 12 hours, but 70% of that time, so whatever that works out to, I'm actually in an activated state, which means you're reactive. You're kind of on autopilot. So that energy that comes across when you're trying to communicate is from fear. It's from your nervous system and your body trying to protect itself, which it does an awesome job. Does an amazing job of making sure you don't get harmed more. And what is harmed? I mean, it can mean physically, but emotionally. So any conversation we have, your body and your mind it's recognizing. It's like, this feels the same as that time mom or dad said this thing to me and it hurt me and I stored that as trauma. This is subconscious, but it's our body protecting us. So what does that happen in the moment? In this conversation, it can turn into an argument. It can mean everybody is gonna, what I'm about to say next, everybody's gonna be like, oh my God, that just happened yesterday. When you say something to somebody and the next day or the next hour, you're like, why did I say that? It's because your nervous system took over and tried to protect you. You're literally on autopilot. So you asked about how the energy matters. In that triggered state or activated state, a person can learn to say the right words. They can learn to say the right words, even though their nervous system is activated. That's when the energy doesn't feel right. So we are giant electromagnets, which is nuts. Like, if anybody wants to look into that, look into Joe Dispenza's work. Your heart can produce a 3-meter electromagnetic field. It's amazing. Like, it's a blending of the woo-woo and the spiritual and the science. It's like, this is a real thing. So if I'm standing in front of you and I say the right words, but your energy is not aligned and it's not coming from your heart, I can literally feel it. If I say the same words, but it's coming from my heart, my nervous system is not activated, it might feel like a beautiful thing. So we're receivers and we're transmitters. So it's not enough to just learn the words. You have to learn to manage your nervous system so that when you show up in conversation, you're coming from a true place. And people are like, what are you? Lost me completely. Those times you feel like arguing, your nervous